This past week, we had another office hours with Vaknar and Roshan about tanking and what we would like to see from the class. Many things were said, some things I agree with, and others I did not. Today, I'll be giving you my thoughts about tanking in general and what Ashes of Creation can do to make tanking fun and engaging. Let's talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is my biggest concern with the tank class, and that's the 64 class system. For those of you who do not know about the 64 class system, let me break it down. By looking at this chart, you see 8 primary classes to the left and 8 class archetypes on the top. So if you want to be a Guardian tank class, you need to pick the tank class as your primary class, and when you hit level 25, you also need to pick the tank class again to become a Guardian tank. Now that sounds really cool, but now I'm going to tell you what I am concerned about as a player. Ashes of Creation will have 8 primary classes, with those classes having abilities you earn while leveling and or choosing in their class talent system possibly. When you hit level 25 to pick your second class augment, like earlier we talked about becoming a Guardian tank, you still have your original abilities from your tank primary class, and they will change or augment quote unquote when selecting your second class augment. Steven has mentioned in past live streams that the Onslaught ability, which is basically a charge ability, if you pick a tank and mage class, then your charge will leave a streak of fire as you charge to the enemy. So because Onslaught is a base tank ability, all 8 tank classes will have a charge ability of some kind that is changed in a way to fit the theme of that class. To some people that really excites players, but to me it does give me concern. I really want different abilities for all 8 archetypes, not keeping the same ability and making some slight tweak or change only then to call it a new and different ability. I want a charge, a leap, no charge at all, and does something completely different. And maybe I will get all of that. Again, I understand we haven't seen anything, but with the Ranger reveal in just 2 more weeks, hopefully the augments really do provide some real customizable changes to make those abilities we started with something completely new and different. I do want to mention that on the wiki, when it comes to tanks, that they will have 3 different types of ways to tank. There'll be evasion tanks, control tanks, and shield tanks. How will this work? Will they be able to pick a certain class combo like tank and rogue and give you an evasion tank? Personally, I want to be able to choose this on my own and not from just picking certain classes. If I do pick tank and rogue, maybe I want the fantasy of carrying a shield and be a shield tank. I don't think it'll work like that, sadly. I think the easiest way to do it will be by picking a certain combination of classes together, and that combo is a shield tank at its core and wouldn't be interchangeable. This is why I really want to see how the talent system works in general, but especially for tanks and healers. Coming from World of Warcraft, tanking as a warrior feels very different than a Death Knight. A Death Knight is very different from a Guardian Druid. How could this even be possible in Ashes of Creation to create that much difference in abilities for each tank class? Here I am just crossing my fingers. I want to discuss active blocking for a second. Coming from World of Warcraft, we don't have that system, and neither in Final Fantasy XIV, which is another MMO I've played. The only thing I want to say about this is that I want it to feel like an ability or something I don't just hold down forever. It needs to have a small to maybe medium window of time, so skill is involved of course, and active block needs to provide something different for each tank archetype. Like if you are a paladin, which is a tank cleric, successful active blocking grants life on hit, while a knight shield, which is a tank rogue, provides a greater evasion stat for a limited time. I'm not against active block, but I don't want it to just be like New World where you can just hold down the button entirely. That doesn't look fun nor engaging to me as a tank. I also want to talk about aggro and hate meters. Personally, I don't like the idea of having to keep threat on a mob. As a tank, I just want to be able to taunt, and now I have full hate and aggro. As a DPS, I remember the old days of WoW. It always felt so terrible to hold back your rotation and your major CDs at the start of a boss. Then you slowly ramp up as a tank and get more and more aggro. That never felt fun or engaging as a DPSer, and as a tank, at least for me, it never felt like fun to manage aggro, position the boss effectively, use my defensive CDs on the proper boss abilities, while also calling out raid mechanics. That was just too much to juggle. Now, I know aggro and hate tables will be in Ashes of Creation. Maybe it won't be like the way it was in 2006 from World of Warcraft. I am willing to give Intrepid the benefit of the doubt. However, if it does feel like that, I will be trying to advocate for the removal of the aggro hate system table entirely. What about tank damage? I will keep this one short, but I just wanted to say that the tanks are not supposed to be a DPS class. Tanks are meant to control the flow of battle and gather mobs together effectively, and of course to take the brutal hits. Now, I'm only talking about PvE scenarios here. Since Masters of Creation will have plenty of PvP, tanks will need to have effective damage against other players. But in raids and in dungeons, you won't want to bring a tank for extra DPS. You will want to bring another DPS for that. I want to talk about the day-to-day rotation and major defensive CDs for tanks. There is always a certain flow of abilities that make that certain tanking class fun. In World of Warcraft, Thunderclap and Bladestorm is a really fun thing to do on mobs. Avenger's Shield and Consecrate is iconic for paladins. Each tank class in Ashes needs to have something different in their kit to want people to play and try out. Death Knights have Death Grip and Blood Boil, Demon Hunters have Metamorphosis transforming themselves into a demon with their Eye Beam. In most MMOs, it is usually very hard to find a tank and a healer for group content, because usually all the cool abilities land on the DPS classes. Most people don't want the responsibility of being a tank or a healer for that matter. So providing some really cool abilities that can be experienced on the tank and cleric class primarily should be essential. Thank you so much for watching.